welcome to our presentation, Eschuchame, using simulations to prepare pre-service special education teachers to communicate positively with families with limited English proficiency. My name is Dr. Gwendolyn Deger, and I am a recently defended doctoral candidate at Penn State University. My dissertation was on parental involvement and the underlying patterns that parents of children with high incidence disabilities are involved with their children. And with me, I have my esteemed friend and colleague, Naima Bhana, who is also a doctoral candidate in her final stages of her program there. We're thrilled to present with you we are thrilled to be presenting our findings from our recent pilot study where we utilized a simulated learning environment to prepare pre-service special education teachers to interact positively with families with limited English proficiency. Working with families is really important to Naima and I. I am not only a special educator and now a researcher of special education, but I am also a parent and guardian to my children and my brother who have varying disability needs that are addressed through IEP and specialized services. And I have found that my experience of being on both sides of the aisle has really helped prepare my pre-service teachers to be able to interact positively with families and give them a unique perspective of being able to see both sides.
Hi, everybody. Like Gwen said, my name is Naima Bhana, and I'm a fourth-year doctoral candidate in special education here at Penn State University. Like Gwen, I am very interested in helping families, especially families from diverse cultural backgrounds, families from Latinx backgrounds, being Latinx myself. I'm really interested in helping them come to the table and have equal rights and opportunities and be able to advocate for their needs. So we are very excited to talk to you guys about this project, and hopefully you'll be able to learn a little bit about how to work with families with limited English proficiency and to work with them when they need an interpreter, which was the part of this project.
Excellent, thank you, Naima. And so today what we're going to go over is we're going to take a little journey through our study by giving you some background information about our case scenario that we developed. So we have a little student vignette that we'll go over initially. We'll establish a rationale and a purpose and some strategies that we had utilized to teach our pre-service teachers to be able to interact positively with families. We'll go over our research questions, our methodology, and then ultimately talk about how they led about to our findings, and we'll discuss those.
So first, let's meet Esperanza. So Esperanza's case study is the same case study we use with the students in the classroom, the pre-service teachers, when we were training them to use the strategies. So Esperanza is our hypothetical student. She's a first-generation Mexican immigrant student. She's bilingual, but does have a learning disability in her native language of Spanish. Her mother, Maria, mainly speaks Spanish, but knows some words and phrases in English as well. Maria has noticed her neighbor's child, who has autism, recently received an iPad through the school to help with his communication needs, and believes that Esperanza would also benefit from having one of these communication devices to help her, communicate with her peers and teachers, as well as for her reading disability. She has Esperanza share this wish with her teachers, who decided it would be better to bring mom to school and discuss this during Esperanza's meeting. This brief case information is provided to our students in our final case scenario of the semester, like I previously mentioned. And then we run through a simulated IEP meeting with the parent and an interpreter, where I play the interpreter. And then we will dive more and explain a little bit more about this in our presentation.
Thank you, Naima. And at the end of this presentation, if you are interested in seeing some of the materials that we provided, there is a QR code at the end of this presentation where you can get access to all of those materials in case you want to utilize them in your classroom. So if it's legally required, why do we need to talk about it? Well, unfortunately, parental involvement varies from school to school, state to state, district to district, across the country. It's not the same. And many times there's barriers that are placed up that prevent parents from being able to be involved in that process. And so first things first is that very few universities actually train teachers how to interact positively with families. Epstein in 2011 actually conducted a survey across state universities across the United States, and they had found that only a handful of them actually had a dedicated course to teach, and a lot of them had really said that they only embed it into their course sequence, so it's not directly taught. And this is particularly problematic because if you don't get the opportunity to teach, teach how to work with families and communicate with families, you're not going to develop ways to work through conflict management, which often is a big portion of our job, is trying to work through disagreements. This is particularly hard when a family's background is different than our own. The vast majority of the special education teaching population continues to be white. They look like me. And our experiences and the way that we were raised is different than our students of color who may have a very different experience that we don't know about. And so what the research shows is that there's not a lot of training in multicultural or culturally responsive practices for families from diverse backgrounds. So we tend to treat families a lot of times the same, even though the situations that a diverse family might need is going to be very different than a family who is white. And we need to be cognizant of that. There's also a discrepancy in how parents and teachers view their parental involvement. So for example, teachers tend to often say that parents are less involved, and parents indicate that they are more involved in the IEP process. This discrepancy often leads to parents feeling like the roles that they're putting in place for their children is ignored or it's invalued. When parents contribute in the IEP meeting and they share a concern, they often feel like their concerns are ignored and not being addressed. Additionally, even though the law states that parents are supposed to be considered equal team members to the IEP team, there's a discrepancy in the balance of that dialogue. For example, Martin and colleagues had actually looked at the transcripts of multiple IEP meetings, and what they found was that parents only tend to speak for about 15% of IEP meetings, whereas special educators dominate the conversation and speak at least 50%, if not more. And so these discrepancies can really impact how welcome parents feel to be able to share their thoughts and their concerns.
So yeah, so we have all the problems that, white parents have all the problems that Gwen previously mentioned. So now imagine the problems that a parent whose first language is not English. So we have an LEP parent, a parent with limited English proficiency. When we're talking about the jargon, when we're talking about IEPs, when we're talking about, idioms, when they need an interpreter, that just magnifies the problem. I have been in IEP meetings where I was an interpreter, where parents were just embarrassed sometimes to talk because they felt that they were not prepared, or that their input was not valuable. Then we also have time constraints. More time is needed to conduct these meetings because you have to have an interpreter explaining everything and going back and forth. And we know that as teachers, we don't have a lot of time, right? We have IEP meetings where someone's covering in our classroom or during recess or before school starts. So we're trying to get it done real fast, and we just don't have enough time. And again, we have a lot of cultural practices that we might not know or we might not be aware of that also impact our meeting when we're talking and meeting with parents who are from diverse backgrounds. So we need to take all of this into consideration and really plan ahead so that the IEP meetings can be a good it can be good for both sides, okay, for the parent and for the teacher. Gwen, do you want to talk a little bit about your dissertation here and what you found?
Sure. So one of the things that really stood out to me was that a lot of the previous research had indicated that parents with limited English proficiency are less involved in the special education process than white parents. And the first thing that made me think was, well, why? Is it just the fact that parents are less involved, or is there underlying reasons why they can't be involved? And so I decided to look at underlying patterns of parents of children with high incidence disabilities. And what I found was that based on the characteristic of limited English proficiency, parents did not vary statistically significantly between my high involvement pattern and my low involvement pattern, which suggests that parents with limited English proficiency are involved at the same level as parents of children with high incidence disabilities. And so we really need to be cognizant in making sure that we're not discrediting or even blaming parents for not being more involved, when really, like Naima said, the language barrier, the time barrier, and the lack of knowledge that many in-service and pre-service teachers have for different people's cultures. It's really important for us to consider all of those things when trying to bridge that gap of being able to work with families.
Well, how do we prepare pre-service special education teachers for positive homeschool partnerships? So in order to address some of these barriers and gaps, we wanted to find out how we were preparing special ed teachers. Here at Penn State, there's a course specifically designed to teach how to create positive family-school partnerships. Through looking at the content and the areas of need, we decided to tailor our instruction around these 10 concepts that we have listed here and design case scenarios where pre-service special educators could practice without the risk of harming a parent or students. So we will dive into some of these in the next few slides, but we will just provide you with a second to look at the current slide.
So some of the strategies that we wanted to incorporate was, first and foremost, a way to establish rapport with families, help them feel welcome, and to be able to listen to them. Far too often, as humans, we are more interested in how we want to form our response to somebody than to actually listen to what they have to say. McNaughton and colleagues in 2008 came up with a mnemonic to be able to help teachers slow down, stop, and try and gain information from the parents, because they have a lot to say and they have a lot of expertise in knowing their child. So the first thing is to listen. So you want to listen when the parent's talking, not talk over them, and just kind of let them talk and get that information out. After they stop talking, you want to follow up by asking some questions. You want them to be good, open questions that allow parents to elaborate and build in that conversation. Oftentimes, you're going to want to take notes so that the parents know that you're actively interested in what you have to say and that your input is indeed valid. Plus, when you have to go back and paraphrase, to kind of summarize what the parent said, those notes are going to be very handy to be able to help you remember. You want to focus on the issues. If there's something in particular that a parent addresses as an area of concern, you want to focus on that. And you don't want to focus on necessarily anything else. Sometimes we have situations where what we want to talk about is not what's really needed in that dialogue. It's something we can address along the way, but sometimes we really need to be able to kind of make sure that we're hearing the parents. So we want to summarize, we want to paraphrase and check to make sure that what we're saying is accurate. And then finally, we want to find a first step. It's a lot easier if we're actively listening, talking to the parent, asking them questions to be able to figure out where their concern or their issue might be, so that we can find a first step to be able to help their child. Because that's really one of the number one things that we want to come across. What we found through utilizing the LAUGH strategy is that McNaughton and colleagues, and Thistle and McNaughton, found that they had a positive acquisition of active listening skills in pre-service special educators and speech therapists, which is really what we want. The second thing that we had was to talk about how to interpret data. We as special educators, we are excellent at being able to test students, graph their data, provide that information to other teachers and talk about it. But the one thing that we tend to really struggle with is how to explain it to families or people who are not necessarily data junkies like we are. And that can be very problematic for parents, because when you're showing them where a child is currently performing and you have like 4 or 5 different graphs that show very different things, it's very hard to interpret where those mean. And so we want to be able to talk about specific assessment data that we've done, what the test measures, what the protocols are, what are some examples, what would it look like, so that it's understandable to the parents. This is all brand new to them in a lot of cases. And so you want to be able to explain it in a way that's parent friendly. You do want to have those graphical displays because they are helpful, but you don't want to put it in such a way that it's overwhelming information for the families. So Dr. Frank, who is our third author here, she actually came up with some really good strategies. She said, you want to find the right time and place to be able to review data. IEP meetings, prime place to be able to go through and explain progress for students in areas of need and what their strengths are. You want to talk about what the test is and explain it to the family in parent-friendly terms. So does that mean we're going to use, the Keystone exam or the PASA or the G-rate assessment? No, you're going to break it down and explain exactly what those acronyms mean to make it a lot easier. Additionally, you need to paint a holistic viewpoint of the child. You don't only want to be talking about what the areas of need are. You want to talk about where their strengths are. And that means, like, even if a student has a difficulty in reading, you want to talk about what they've mastered in that reading section so that you can better say, this is where they're at in their path. Here's where we're going to go next. That helps you be able to write goals that are not only effective, but really match where their areas of need are. And it helps provide examples and recommendations to be able to help the parents as they go as well.
Okay, so how do we prepare for service special education teachers for our homeschool partnerships? Now, we want them to incorporate the right strategies, like Gwen said. One of them that we incorporated in this case scenario was to make decisions about assistive technology. When we talk about assistive technology, many times we think about communication. Well, assistive technology is anything that may help make our lives a little bit easier. Something that I teach in my assistive technology class is that now with technology, all of us use assistive technology in some form, right? Whenever we ask Siri or Alexa or Google, hey, do this for me, or we tell them text this person and we do speech to text, that is a form of assistive technology we use every day. Or whenever we're typing something and we just, use or we're handwriting something and we use a grip. Some students use a grip. That is also assistive technology. I think when your son uses a writing grip sometimes, and that's part of assistive technology. In this case,
and that's something that gets I'm sorry, I was going to say, and that's something that winds up getting addressed in the IEP.
Yeah, exactly. And that's part of the IEP meeting. And that's something that the students end up discussing with Maria about Esperanza in our case study. So some of the questions that Satsangi and colleagues told us, like recommend we ask about assistive technology is, will it help the students succeed? Does the data suggest it will be needed for the student? Does it promote students' autonomy? And this is a really, really big one, right? We want assistive technology that's going to help the student be more independent, not for the student to be dependent on the technology. Is it aligned to the student's preferences? Is it, that's the social validity part, right? Are we doing it because it's cool, because it's hip, or are we doing it because the student needs it and the student wants it? That's very important. What are the social implications? And finally, if it's necessary. In our case study, something that we taught the students is we provided them the data, we provided them with a case study, but then they had to decide. They had to analyze data and see what the parent needed and what the child's needs were, in this case, Esperanza, and decide if assistive technology was, in this case, the iPad that Maria was asking for Esperanza was actually necessary and was actually going to help Esperanza be more autonomous in the classroom and help her succeed. And so that's something that they decided with the data, and you guys will get to see some videos of that in a little bit. So.
We're also concerned about the behavior and why it needs to be stopped or it needs to be reframed. Most cases, this is kind of like my Dr. Frank always used to say, it's kind of like mind ninja. You're kind of really reframing, and it does pay dividends. We also want to teach pre-service special education teachers about how to write appropriate goals. SMART goals have long been the way to kind of write IEP goals. We want them to be specific so that they're written in plain language of what needs to be done, what the conditions are to be able to meet this goal, and how long it might take, and how accurate do they have to be. So you write that in very clear language. You want to make sure that whatever goal you write is measurable. It needs to be quantifiable. So you can't say, oh, Susie's going to read better. That's not a goal, that's a wish list. But a goal could be, say, given reading materials provided at the 5th grade reading level, Susie's going to read 127 words correct per minute with 95% accuracy over 3 out of 3 consecutive trials. That is a lot clearer, and it gives really tangible, this is how many words she's going to read correct per minute. I can be able to verify that by counting out those words. So that's really important. You also want to make sure that your goal is achievable. Far too often, we're writing goals that are very lofty and they're not attainable for our students. And so therefore, our students aren't meeting the goals that we need them to. So it's better to start smaller and then be able to build up to bigger goals. We want to make sure that the goals that we're writing as well are relevant to what we want the students to master. If you're writing a goal that is about decoding needs when really what they need is comprehension, that's not going to be an effective goal in improving that comprehension. So those are things that we really want to think about. They also need to be time specific. So they need to have kind of a start and end point to be able to monitor that progress. Usually it's about a year's time, but we want to make sure that we have that end date and that we really want to meet that goal. And then 2 others that Mick Lode in 2012 had added was that goals and objectives should be engaging so that students have a sense of ownership and motivation to meet the goal. And it should be, they should have some type of reward, whether it's intrinsic or extrinsic, that again kind of helps keep that goal motivating for the student, for them to succeed. My son, for example, for good behavior at school, is really into stickers right now, and that has been very engaging, especially since mommy made him some good Minecraft stickers. He really likes Minecraft.
And then the best practices, we also train them in best practices for using interpreters. First, it was very important for them to introduce the interpreter in their role, because many times, especially in the pre-test, before we taught them the best practices, I was just there. They didn't know what to do with me. The parent and that whoever was playing the parent at the time, sometimes they would take advantage and say, and that, who's that? Who's that lady there? Why is she here? A little bit, aggressive, because they didn't know why this foreign person was in their meeting talking to them about their child. So it's very important to introduce the interpreter and what their role is, and then let the parent decide if they need the interpreter. Because sometimes the parent said, actually, I think my English, in this case, we had an actress playing the role of the mother via the simulation, the Teach Live simulation. So sometimes she would change it up for the students. Sometimes she was very fluent in English and she didn't really need the interpreter. And she would say, I'm just going to use you and ask you if I have a question. But sometimes she really needed the support of the interpreter, and she would ask for everything to be translated. The students didn't really know what they were going to get until the actress started talking at that time, which was really, really neat for them to see both sides, because you don't really get practice with that. But then we taught the students to slow down and pause frequently to allow the interpreter to talk. As an interpreter, I was an interpreter before I became a teacher, and that was a really important thing for me, that I made sure to provide the client the factual information. It was really hard to try to remember or write down everything, and you want to be able to provide accurate information. So slow down, pause frequently, at wait time for processing. We're talking about people that are speaking in a second language, so it's very important. Make clear, statements are clear and specific. Try to avoid jargon, acronyms, or idioms. And like Gwen previously mentioned, spell it out, explain what things are before you start using them. Keep eye contact. And this is the most important one that I really want to repeat here. Keep eye contact on the parent, not look at the interpreter. You might look at the interpreter once or twice just to make sure that you guys are on the same page, but you're talking, the conversation is with the parent. You want the parent to be reassured. You want the parent to feel listened. Look at the parent. Don't look just at the interpreter. Your conversation is with the parent, not the interpreter. And that was the last one as well. So it's ideally, we want to say 2 or 3 sentences, allow this interpreter to convey that to the parent, and then wait back, and so back and forth. So it just has a nicer flow to the conversation, and nothing is lost in translation.
Yeah, exactly. So the purpose of our study was to be able to explore the effects of the simulated learning environment on preparing pre-service special education teachers to lead an IEP meeting and collaborate with a parent with a limited English proficiency. And the reason why we wanted to do this in this manner was to be able to give teachers experience of what it's going to feel like in the real world. We wanted pre-service teachers to kind of get their experience, to get their feet wet, because far too often when we're doing student teaching, we may not have the opportunity to interact with parents. And so we had 3 questions that we really wanted to take a look at. And so we wanted to see, how was their overall pre-test and post-test scores? Did they perform significantly better in their effective communication strategies based on those 10 components that we've talked about? And if so, where was the difference? Was it in all areas? Was it one area? And then we wanted to see what our pre-service teachers had to say about the use of the simulated learning environment. Did it help make a difference? We already were giving them detailed feedback, and they were able to kind of communicate and have discussions with their peers, but this was the first opportunity where they were able to interact with a parent, and that I felt like really would give a bigger difference. So what we utilized was a pre-post pilot study, and we did this over the last 3 years. So we've collected data from 35 pre-service teachers. The majority were white females, surprise, surprise, very in tune with our current population of special education teachers. The majority were special education majors, though we had several that were special education minors. So they also had I think one had a general education degree or curriculum and instruction. Some were early childhood special educators, and then we also had some speech therapists. This was provided within the simulated learning environment university classroom. We conducted a paired sample t-test and graphed their differences to be able to kind of visually analyze whether they were making growth or not. And then the overall design, when we had the practice simulation, they were given approximately 15 minutes to be able to deliver an IEP meeting. Now, granted, this was truncated quite a bit because an actual IEP meeting can last an hour or more depending on the situation, but that is very taxing within a simulated learning environment. So we did a maximum of 15 minutes. They were going to go over the students' present levels, whether they needed assistive technology, what accommodations and goals they had, and then kind of wrap up the meeting and talk about recommendations. After their practice simulation, we would break down into a whole group and we'd have a nice discussion about what they saw, what were strengths that they saw, what were areas of need, what worked, what didn't work. And then afterwards, the participants would actually conduct a self-evaluation of themselves based on how they thought that they did. So we were able to get some information about how they thought their first performance was. In addition, I would provide them back with detailed feedback on what behaviors I saw them do and what behaviors I expected to see. And so students were able to kind of see right then and there where I really wanted them to, what I wanted them to do, as well as what are some suggestions on what they could do to improve on their final simulation. About a week later, they would do their final simulation. Same case scenario, same situation, but the only difference is that they would interact with a live in-person parent instead of the digital avatar. And so they would run the simulation the same way, but it would be more like an actual meeting than necessarily looking at a TV screen. At the end, pre-service teachers would write a written reflection to talk about their practice and their final simulation scores.
Okay, so the researchers observed and coded all the simulations and provided the student with detailed feedback. Like Gwen said, she did this. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll have a QR code for all the materials for this scenario. So you can see all the data we collected. But essentially, we checked off specific behaviors in each of the 10 areas. If all but one was checked as being observed, participants will receive a score for proficient. If participants had most of the behaviors as observed, they will get a 3. If they did about half of them, they will get a 2. But if they only did a few, they will get a 1. So then I recoded 25% of all sessions so that we had agreement, which was about 86.9%. So it was pretty good agreement.
So the overall goals of the simulation is that we want them to apply what they learned in class in a real world situation where they're meeting with a parent with limited English proficiency, where they're getting to interact with an interactor and realizing what are some of the habits that we might do that really aren't good habits to have when we're working with families from diverse backgrounds. We want them to be able to review the students' progress, make decisions, write goals, and specifically designed instruction within the IEP that would help address Esperanza's need. And we want to be able to make sure that, again, they're utilizing those best practices with the interpreter. So here are 2 different examples. So we have a pre-test example with a student, and then we have the post-test example. So here's the first one.
Session begins. Hi, I just want to introduce myself.
Maria, you're freaking out.
Okay. Hi, thank you for coming in today. So I'm Kate. I'm one of Esperanza's teachers. And
Hi, hello, Maria Esperanza Madre.
Hola, señora María, yo voy a hacer la traductora el día de hoy. Si necesita ayuda, alguna ayuda con la traducción.
Ay, gracias.
So I just want to go over a couple of ground rules or basic rules that I have for our meeting today. I'd like us to all have one person speak at a time. That way we can all respect each other and respect each other's opinions during this meeting. Does that work for you?
Rule, speak, ¿cómo?
Si queremos, ella quiere tener algunas reglas para la reunión, que cada uno hable una vez a la vez para así poder respetarnos uno al otro más fácilmente.
Ah, sí, yeah, I can speak after.
And are you okay if I reference my notes and take some notes just so I don't forget anything during our meeting today? ¿Usted está de acuerdo con que ella tome notas para que no se le olvide nada y para poder tenerlas de referencia?
Ay, sí, que escriba harto.
Yes, please write a lot. Thank you. First off, how are things going at home? Is Esperanza doing well at home? Is work going well for you?
Esperanza, mom, chicos, a lot of work right now, many people in the laundry. Esperanza has to help at home, pero sometimes she don't want to. She get angry. She wanna go with friends, pero I tell her, no, you have family, you have to help. Pero she wants to go with friends all the time. Friend.
Well, that's good that she has friends that she wants to spend time with.
No good, because I need a help in the casa, in the house.
I understand. All right, so I just want to start by saying, Esperanza is doing very well in school. She works very hard. She's doing well. She talks to other people, and I noticed that she uses Spanish a lot when speaking with her friends, and that's definitely good that she wants to keep strength in her native language. But we also want to make sure that she increases her speaking ability and communication ability within English. So that's what I want to talk to you about today.
Yeah, she have a friend or speak Spanish, porque more easy. Pero other people, sometimes they don't like people speak Spanish, so they don't want to be friends.
Okay, I understand. So today, so we can work on this, today we're going to go over the paper in front of you, which is Esperanza's Individualized Education Plan, or I'll also be calling it an IEP during this conversation.
Plan, okay, I like the plan.
Yep. So I was just wondering, so to start off, why would you like Esperanza to have a tablet in the classroom? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
She needs tablet.
But why would you like her to have a tablet? Like, what are your thoughts on that device that she can use?
She needs tablet, she better school, write, read, listen, look up, everything. A tablet can do everything.
Okay, so to start off, I just want to go over some, we've done some assessments where we have gotten scores back to decide whether she's doing well in an area or if she's still working.
¿Qué es hacerme?
Like a test.
Un test, okay. ¿Por qué no dijo test? Okay.
So some areas that Esperanza is doing very well on is listening, speaking, and her oral language. So she's doing very well in these areas.
Listening, speaking, y oral, ¿sí?
Yes.
Speaking.
Yep. So I understand that one of the reasons you want her to have a tablet is because you think she needs to work on her listening a little bit, but obviously, like, according to
I see she never listens.
in the classroom, she does very well with listening and understanding what is going on when she hears people speak or when I'm speaking and her classmates. So some areas that she's still working on is her reading, her writing, literacy, and comprehension.
Wait, reading, writing, literary, ¿qué literacy?
Literacy, like, it goes with reading. It's like understanding what is going on.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Reading, writing, understanding.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So with these areas, I have, instead of a tablet, I want to suggest another area or another technology that we can use to help Esperanza, because we feel that her always being connected to a tablet can almost take her away from connecting well with her peers, because she'd be too focused on using that to communicate. And we feel that the best way to help her communicate is to do that one-on-one without that device as a middle ground.
Okay.
So one thing we've been doing in school is we've been working on repeated readings, and we have noticed that these have already helped her to become more proficient with the English language.
Okay.
So since she's doing well with this, we want to work on helping her get better at, reading and writing and comprehension, understanding. So my suggestion is that we can do, instead of doing these repeated readings, I can record myself or have someone else read over different passages that she can follow within a book. So we can do this within like a cassette tape or on a CD or one of these technologies that she will be able to listen to and follow along the book, so she can read and she hears what's going on. And the connection between the two should help her to understand what's going on more, since she's already doing well with the listening aspect. Does that make sense?
Okay. So she listens to book?
Yes. So I could record myself reading a book or a passage that she will follow along with within the physical passage itself, so she can understand what's going on better.
Okay. Como hearing it.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
do you think that would work for you? That way she can use that at home and outside the classroom, since we are already working with her in the classroom on these skills?
Maybe, I think so. For listening.
Okay, so we think that with using this, it'll help her also work on her reading skills as well.
Okay. For reading, for listening. Okay.
So,
We try.
and then another thing we want to work on is, obviously, like we talked about how she communicates with, or she speaks to her friends a lot in Spanish, but we want to make sure that she's working on her English speaking ability as well. So I understand that she's really interested in art. So
Yes.
there's different classes in school that we offer, where she can go and do different art
Yes,
activities.
she tell me clases, pero no cannot, porque we need help home con everything.
Well, the class is built into like her daily schedule at school. So
Okay.
she has the option to stay in school, during the day and take these art classes where she can talk to other classmates and communicate in English over a common interest. Would you be okay with her taking a class like this?
I think so.
Okay, so I think that what we decided on is that I'll provide an audiobook for her or a recording of myself reading, and so that way she can work on reading while listening and comprehending what's going on. And then we'll also make sure to enroll her in this art class so she can talk to other people and do something that she really enjoys doing. And then are there any other questions you have for me as to something you want us to work on with her?
No, you help so she learns, she speak better, better English than me.
We definitely want to increase her English ability. And then, so if you have any more questions, I can provide you with my contact information so we can talk more. And perhaps we can see, in a few months how this has been doing for her. And if you have any more concerns, we can meet again. But we can talk about that at a later date. I understand you have your own business and you're a very busy person. So I'll make sure.
Okay, después miramos si sí sirvió.
Sí, en 2 semanas podemos, I'm sorry, you said 2 weeks or a couple of weeks. Un par de semanas podemos hablar de nuevo para ver cómo le está yendo con lo que le estamos ofreciendo ahorita.
Oh, okay, yes, good.
Okay, so I'll make sure that I give you my information as well. Thank you for meeting with me today, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Okay, thank you, gracias.
End session.
So at the end of this pre-test video, kind of what you could see is that she struggled with giving specifics about where the child's strengths were, where their needs were, and utilizing the interpreter. One of the biggest things that I had really noticed out of this particular one was that she would overly not slow down, talk very quickly about a lot of technical jargon, and wouldn't necessarily give the time for the interpreter to interpret.
She also didn't introduce the interpreter in that one.
She did not. She did. She kind of was like, you can introduce yourself instead, which was a little bit more sassy. You really want to make the interpreter, be clearly identified that that is what their role is. They are there to help be an interpreter for the parent so that they know what's going on during the meeting. So we're going to show you now a post-test video. And one of the things that we're going to really look to see is, where are some of the improvements? What differences do we see with this particular student? So let's go ahead and watch this.
Hello, Maria. How are you? Okay. How are you? Good. Thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it. So I got your email about the iPad, and I thought that now was a good time to meet. Before we start, can I introduce you to our translator, Naima?
Hola.
Hola. Hola. So if you need her to translate anything during the meeting, or just like reiterate anything that I'm saying, just let me know. Okay. Great. So how have things been at home with you and Ronza, the family? Okay. Yeah. How's laundromat? How are daily routines? Busy. Got a lot of customers. That's great. Wonderful. How do you feel that Esperanza is doing this year at home and in school? No sé.
I don't know. I don't have an info.
Well, I have her IEP up. Did you get the copy in Spanish that I sent you? Yeah. Okay, great. I thought that would be helpful. So today I just would like to go over where she's at right now, her present levels, and talk about some goals that we can make in school and at home for the rest of the year. Before I do that, do you have any concerns that you want to address? No. Also, is it okay with you if I take notes? Sí, ¿están problemas?
Is she in trouble?
Oh, no, I'm just taking notes throughout the meeting so I can remember what you said and what I said, and we can look back on it later if we need to. Oh, okay. And Naima can translate the notes and send you a copy of them in Spanish at the end if you would like. Oh, see, yeah. Good. Great, wonderful. Okay, so first, I would like to tell you that Esperanza is such a hardworking student. She's such a joy to have in class. I've talked with all of her teachers, and her Spanish teacher says she's incredibly social with her Spanish-speaking peers. She's a little less social with her friends that are English-speaking. So I'm hoping to work on that this year because I want her to have friends that speak English as well as Spanish. But she has a very good grade in algebra. She has a very good grade in social studies. Those are both great. So she's doing well in all of her classes, except for reading. She's still struggling, as you know, we've had meetings in the past. She has improved. This year we have implemented repeated readings.
What are repeated readings?
So repeated readings are when a student gets a piece of text and they reread it over and over again, and this builds fluency. Do you have to explain what fluency is?
¿Necesita que le explique qué es fluency?
No sé.
Yeah, I don't know what fluency is. Can you explain that?
So fluency is how like the rate, how fast the student reads, and how accurate it is. So speed and correctness. So repeated readings help with that, as well as comprehension. And those are where Esperanza struggles. She struggles with comprehending or understanding what she's reading in English, and also her ability to process it quickly. So we really have been trying to work on that this year. And currently she's reading at a rate of 100 words per minute, but our goal by the end of the year is for her to read 123 words correct per minute. Is everything good so far? Understanding? Wonderful.
In English, sí.
It's the
Yes, in English. She is actually 3 grade levels higher in Spanish reading, which is great. So we are working on them both, but she has made great progress with reading in Spanish, and we want her to make that same progress in English. So that's great news, and we're going to continue to work on that. So I really want to talk about some goals that we can make together. As I said, her biggest struggle right now is reading comprehension and processing. But are there any goals that you would like her to meet this year?
No, pero tengo una idea.
Not really, but I have an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mi vecina tiene un iPad. Yo quiero un iPad con Esperanza. ¿Es posible?
So my neighbor has an iPad for her son, and it's been working really well for them. So I would like an iPad for us all. Is that going to be possible?
So that has been an option in the past for some students, but I don't think that would be the best fit for Esperanza. The reason I say that is because Esperanza is already making so much progress with what we've been doing. I'm afraid that if Esperanza had an iPad to do all of her translating and reading for her, that she would stop practicing and then wouldn't be able to do it on her own. And then she would be dependent on the iPad. So if she didn't have it, she can't always use it for a job or in college. We really want to use these years in high school to make sure that she can do as much as possible on her own.
Okay.
So what do you think about that?
Okay.
Understand? Wonderful. So it works for some students that have more needs than Esperanza, but because Esperanza is so capable and because she's doing so well in her other classes, I think she would be a lot more successful if we let her learn this on her own.
Okay.
And I definitely believe that she can do it.
Okay.
So, and then that brings me to what you can do at home to help Esperanza get better this year. So, do you, what does your afternoon after school schedule normally look like?
Esperanza, she come home, and then we go to work and make dinner, go to sleep.
Great. And so does she normally do her homework in the evening?
Yeah. Usually, yeah.
Perfect. So if you don't have any other ideas, so I had an idea, which is I could send home 4 repeated readings on Mondays with Esperanza.
Okay.
And so 2 nights a week, she would do Spanish repeated readings at home. And you can help her with those.
Sí, lo siento, pero mi inglés no es muy bien.
I'm sorry, but my English is not really good, so I'm not sure how I can help her.
The Spanish repeated readings. I'm sending her home readings in both languages because she needs to improve on her reading in both languages. So
Ah,
you will be able to help her with the ones that are in Spanish.
okay.
If you have time, or her grandmother can help, she can read with her siblings, whatever works best for your family.
Okay.
And then the English ones, don't worry about not being able to help her with those. The idea is just that she repeats it over and over again. Even if there are some errors, it will still do what it is intended to do. So the main goal would be that either you or the grandmother or whichever parent is home at the time, just make sure that she does them. So if I were to put that in the form of a goal for Esperanza, it would be that she does 2 English repeated readings at home a week and 2 Spanish repeated readings at home a week. How does that sound?
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful. And then at school, we will also be doing repeated readings as well as some one-on-one work in ESL and in her English class.
Okay.
So we're going to be implementing a lot of things this year. And our goal, as I mentioned before, is to get her to reading 123 words correct per minute by the end of the year.
Okay.
So that's our goal. How does that sound?
Good. Good.
Yeah, I would just like to reiterate again, Esperanza is so hardworking and has been doing a really great job this year, and you can see how hard she's working. So I know in I think it's 2 weeks from now, we have the full IEP meeting with the entire team. Does that date and time still work for you? I think
Yes.
Friday at like 3.
Sure.
Yeah. Wonderful. So that being said, I'm really glad that we got to go over this ahead of time and, address the iPad situation. I really think Esperanza is going to thrive without it. Do really well. So that I'm looking forward to that. And then, so you'll have the goal. I'll send the readings, the first group of readings home on Monday. And then just 4 days a week. And you can alternate them however you want. You can do the repeated readings with her. She can practice by herself. And then we will continue to do what we've been doing at school and get her up to that reading rate that we want. Cool.
Okay. All right.
Great. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. See you next Friday.
Okay.
From what you could see throughout that video is that there were a lot of improvements and changes in that particular student's behavior. They did very well with establishing rapport. They gave that time for the interpreter to be able to translate for the parent as they needed it. And were able to, provide information that would be valuable for the parent. So one of the things that we found when addressing research question 1 was, is there a significant difference in the pre-service teachers' behaviors from pre to post? What we found was that there was a huge statistically and practically significant difference in their IEP evaluation scores based on our rubric from the practice simulation to the final simulation. We had a paired samples t-test of 9.475 that was significant at the 0.001 level, in fact, was well below that. And our Cohen's D, which talks about practical significance, which was 1.63. And so they really talk, and what that really says is that the difference in being able to practice within the simulation from pre to post actually improved their post-test scores. And with the exception of 3 students that outperformed their pre-test over their post-test, you can very clearly see that pretty much all of our students, all 34 of them, grew from pre to post, which is exactly what we want to see for them. So then we wanted to take a look at how they were doing on the subcomponents. And we wanted to make sure, are their differences actually statistically significant, and do they have any practical significance in what they taught them? And so what we found was that they did very well with establishing rapport and in specifically designed instruction and in recommendations. They had a huge practical significance in addition to the significance. They also had very moderately strong practical effects on active listening, making decisions about assistive technology, managing conflict, goal writing, closure, and the use of the interpreter, which is really important. The only one that was not significant was the present levels of academic performance. And that could be because of the fact that we spend a lot of time teaching teachers about utilizing data, that there isn't that much instruction that would have made a big difference between the pre and the post. Now, it may have been different if this course was taught earlier in their program, where this was their first opportunity to interpret data.
Okay, and finally, even though it wasn't part of the study, we look at some of the social validity data. We asked each group, we asked for their comments and what they like about the study and what they didn't like about the experience of using Teach Live and working with an interpreter. Although it wasn't part of the study, like I said, the last few years, the teacher evaluations for this class were some of the highest scores that we've had. And these are some of the comments that we got from the students who took this class. The simulations were priceless and should be used throughout the future. It is nothing like we've used before. They were extremely beneficial and should be offered to all education majors, not just special education. We will use every skill we learn in class in our real lives, and that is what makes this class so great. And finally, one of the best ones. At first, I was nervous about doing the practice simulations in front of my peers, but that was where I learned the most. Watching my peers and their interactions showed the variances in how meetings can go. The discussions afterwards about what you would have done, how to handle the situations, etc., really furthered my learning. It provided endless life and professional lessons. We should also mention that after this, we have decided, the university has decided to use Teach Live for other classes. And most recently during the COVID pandemic, since we were not able to, the students were not able to go into the schools for some of their placements, we have switched to a virtual model for some of those practice experiences. It's not ideal, but it provides a little bit more than just role playing with peers or with teachers. So the simulations, the fact that we've gotten such great sociability and such great comments has really helped us keep using it in the classroom here at the university level.
I had actually one of our students who was student teaching happened to say that she got to run an IEP meeting because her co-op thought she was ready to. And she said it was all because of getting to practice within the simulator that she felt comfortable and not nervous to work with families. And so that really meant a lot to us, and it really showed. In addition, we actually have some of the school districts around our area starting to implement in their job applicants doing simulations just like this to see how do their teachers react under pressure when they're disagreeing with a parent, because that's again a lot of what our job is having meetings and meeting with teachers, meeting with parents, and talking about data. So it was a very crucial thing and something that Penn State really has kind of listened to that local feedback to make a difference. So overall, what we found was that there was, again, that large change in their behaviors from pre to post. Additionally, we found that all of their skills had grown. Even the academic achievement one, even though it wasn't a significant growth, it was approaching significance, which really says that being able to practice these helps make a big difference from pre to post and helps them with their comfort. I really felt like, as well, as you could see from some of our social validity that our pre-service teachers provided with, was that they really liked this. They liked to be able to practice it and actually feel like they were in the field, even though they really weren't. And again, in the invention of COVID, it paid off that we were able to do these simulations where we could utilize the digital avatar, even at a distance. And so that was a really beneficial thing that we were able to do. For implications in future research, for teacher educators, this has a lot of implications for us. We want to come up with ways to be able to give them those authentic learning experiences that will really help bridge the gap between what they learn in the classroom to what they do in the field. Because far too often, we're not necessarily preparing them enough to be able to interact positively with families. And this really gives them that first step of being able to do that. We also found that, again, since the predominant sample of pre-service teachers and teachers in general are white, it's giving them an experience with a family from limited English proficiency that they may not have ever had the opportunity to interact with. Penn State is right in the middle of Pennsylvania. And so a lot of the students we work with look exactly like white people. And so that's, really something that we really need to consider is, are we giving our students the experiences that they need to be able to work with students and parents that have diverse backgrounds and experiences?
One thing I just wanted to comment off that is that even though we're in central Pennsylvania, a lot of our students do end up going to areas like Pittsburgh, Philly, Reading, areas that have really big immigrant communities, Spanish-speaking communities. So they end up, even though they don't get to practice here because we are in Center County, Pennsylvania, in the center of Pennsylvania, when they do go to where they end up teaching, they need to have these skills. They are going to be interacting with families from diverse backgrounds. So the fact that they are able to practice this, it's really important.
And I love that add-on because you know what? White and Mason in 2006 found that one of the top priorities that and urgent things that pre-service teachers or first year teachers needed was the fact that they wanted help with interacting with families and running IEP meetings. So that right there tells you one of the biggest gaps that we have is the fact that they really need that level of support when they're first going out there. But think if they had that experience in college, they'd feel a lot more confident with that. And so I really think that that is going to pay dividends for them. One of the nice things about scenarios is that you can utilize them and kind of build them up over time. So like if you had a class, say you started with a behavior management class and you were teaching them about behavior management strategies, you could have that student follow them to the assessment class, to the parent and family involvement class, and it could like build up to like a final culminating project where they're utilizing all the skills that they learned in the classroom. So it would be really a powerful tool. And again, previous research really indicates that when you can give discussion and talk about feedback and reflect on your own behavior, you're more likely to make changes to that behavior. For research, we really want to keep working on this and look at ways to be able to generalize this to the field, so that in-service teachers can benefit from this just as much as pre-service teachers. We want to also make sure that those skills continue to transfer when they start their first years. We also want to look at how does stress impact those parent meetings? Does it make a big difference with their communication skills? Does it give them insight into how to be able to make improved changes to their interactions? And then finally, we want to research what does a mastery-based progression of skills, so starting with a simpler difficulty level of a parent to a more difficult one. Does it matter? Should you get experience with a more intense situation to kind of see what you do under pressure and kind of to see how you react to it? And so we'd like to investigate that a little bit further. Naima, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just thinking it will be really interesting for the future as well to interview and the students that went through the simulation and see what they think now that they've been in the field for, some of them have been in the field for 2 or 3 years already. So how the simulation really helped, or, you know, if it helped them prepare them for their IEP meetings or for working with parents from diverse backgrounds as well.
That's a great idea. I think a longitudinal study like that, where you could study them over time, could really give a wealth of great information as well.
Future research plans for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Lots of future research for both of us. But with all studies, there are some limitations. There's time limitations. You can't spend an hour in the simulation. It's going to be exhausting. And unfortunately, based on the way that the semester ended, we couldn't really generalize to see student teaching. It might be because this course was taught in the spring as opposed to in the fall. The majority of our students do student teaching in the spring, and so we didn't really have that opportunity. There would have been a gap. And so I think that being able to go and do that would be very beneficial. Second, the cost of the software. The initial setup of Teach Live is very expensive because you have to get software, devices, the computer space, the location within the university, and then you have to hire the interactors to be able to deliver it in addition to controlling it. So there's a lot of initial setup that from behind the scenes can make it very disadvantageous to approach, even though it's extremely beneficial. Additionally, technical difficulties. We all experience technical difficulties, but having a lag or freezing can make it difficult for participants to suspend their disbelief and feel like this is a real meeting. And that can be very difficult. Further, the scenario, because it was developed by us researchers, there's a level of scriptedness that is provided. So we have to tell the interactor how to behave. How do they behave when the participant does something we want them to do? How do they behave when the participant misses what we want them to do? Some of that could potentially limit generalizability. And so we have to kind of study that and kind of take that under consideration. And unfortunately, due to the timing and everything, we had limited parental input in the creation of this scenario. And I think it would be very beneficial for future research to be able to have parents who help develop these scenarios for authenticity, and then have them compare the pre to post and have them identify who was the better communicator, which meeting was the better meeting. That could provide a lot of information on how parents perceive these meetings and what their future take from those would be. So we want to thank you so much for coming out to our presentation today. I hope it was really informative and can really help guide some of your practice. Again, as promised, we have our references provided through this QR code to the left. And then we also have a Google Drive with all of our information provided on the QR code at the right. So you'll be able to see, all the case scenario information, which is extremely detailed, what our hits, what our misses were, so that if you were to consider doing this particular scenario, you would have everything that you would need. So I hope that you enjoy this, and thank you very much. Again, I'm Dr. Gwendolyn Deger, and this is Naima. Bhana.
Bye guys.
Bye
Thank you for
everyone.
joining us.